Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome back to the Daily Huddle. Welcome to Miss Salarillo for joining us again. Thank you, thank you. Hey, just thinking out loud here, did you do anything special last night?
I watched Jimmy Butler light up at arena. 56 points, baby. He was on fire. The whole team was amazing. Really, they just really came together. It was a rough one. They were behind the entire game, so didn't think they were going to pull it off. But he came.
To know that he scored 21 points in the fourth quarter when a lot of people run away and hide, it was super fun to watch. I happened to have had dinner out last night, so I got home a little late, and then was there watching the game, and I was like, this is so bad. Like, they were just so bad. And then I don't know what happened. Like, Milwaukee just said, you know what? We're going to stop playing.
But so I'm going to be the Debbie Downer of the situation and just be like, we watched this happen last year. We knew that he was good enough to carry the team, and we didn't do anything to help position ourselves as a real championship contender. We just said, you know what? We're one shot away. We'll just keep it the same and run it back and do it again. And watching them go through the season, knowing that you really weren't good enough. And then for him to play this way, it's really just disappointing for me. Like, it's super exciting to hear. And I went to sleep. I was so tired yesterday, so I didn't get to see the end of it. But listening to everybody this morning, the excitement, watching the highlights and seeing how electric the building was, there is a bit of disappointment for me saying the organization screwed this up.
Go away. Okay, so there's a time and a place.
Get more sleep.
There's a time and a place for disappointment. Last night was not one of them, because that was the greatest individual performance by a Heat player in franchise history. So 56.
You got to give him his due.
Got to give him his due, and it's great. Now, I happen to agree with you, pulling the camera back, going, here's this amazing talent that is alone.
Right.
Reggie Miller was great. He said he's scoring because he's the only one who can.
Right. Exactly correct. I have to carry the squad. I have no choice.
It was, anyway, super cool to be a sports fan. So much activity. Rangers, Knicks, Heat, Jets make the move finally and bring Aaron Rodgers in. It looks like they leveraged the future to do it, but should be fun.
Win it now, baby. I hope that it works out for them. They have.
Well, it's interesting because Jake and I were having a conversation, and he brought up a statistic that quarterbacks drafted in the first round over the last 10 or 15 years, highly unlikely the percentages are against them ever being anything. So it's they mostly
hardest position, and it's the hardest position in the league to play. It's the hardest position in the league to be projected to do well and actually match that projection. So if you've learned anything over the past decade in football, is that you have to have a quarterback, and you do anything you can to go get the guy. So you went and got a guy. He's proven he can win. Now I think the thing that he's got to prove is that he can win over a young locker room and guys that, he's going to have to connect with them. And I think that's a leadership lesson in sports or in business is I don't really give a shit about your resume, dude. Like, you're going to have to come in and earn the respect of the team. You're going to have to win them over with your work ethic and your commitment. You're going to have to lead by example. Tom Brady did it in Tampa because he showed up and went to work and said, this is what winning looks like. And then when he stopped doing that, they were no longer successful. So if Aaron Rodgers decides to sit out of minicamp and sit out of training,
I don't think that's going to happen.
I hope not.
That's not going to happen. I think he's got a chip on his shoulder. I'm excited. It should be a really fun season ahead. A couple of shout outs before we jump. I had lunch yesterday. Now, I hadn't been to Tap not 42 in a long time. It's really a quality lunch.
Good
Very
stuff.
impressed.
Which downtown by the hospital?
Downtown. Had lunch with Vanessa Cibillero, who is with Bank United, and I will now start doing work on the commercial side of the bank. She heads up the commercial team. So I'm super excited to extend our relationship with Bank United. Thank you, Jerry Latrento, for that. And then had dinner with just two rock star human beings, Scott Hyman and Gino Valdez. And the words that come to mind were certainly fellowship, but it was such an intense business conversation that I said to them, I go, is it me or is this like super fun? You know, some people have fun doing other shit. This is fun for me. We explored, we left there with an action plan of how to grow each other's business. You know, Gino being part of our world, just great stuff. So shout out to them. Great meal, great stuff. Let's wake this thing up because Lori Salarillo is bringing another C word to the table.
Let's do it. Wake up, everybody. Get up, get up, get up, get up. Wake up. Come on, come on. Wake up, everybody. Teach a new way. Maybe then they'll listen what you have to say. Wake up, everybody. No more sleeping in bed. No more back to thinking, top of thinking ahead. Come on.
So I love other professionals like Lori who are constantly learning, lifelong learning. And she's now gotten in the habit of shooting me a note, maybe a huddle topic, and she sends me collective intelligence. And I'm like, all right, that sounds like a smart word. I don't really know what it is. So in the rabbit hole I go. I just came up for air, man. It is unbelievable. The short definition is it's the body of knowledge that grows out of a group. But Lori, I am passing the baton. Take it. You brought it to us and roll with it.
Well, thanks. So for those of us in the nonprofit world, you typically hear a word called collective impact, which is a group of nonprofits typically coming together, bringing their expertise and knowledge to solve an issue, a societal issue, right? So this is kind of the same thing, but really more in the business world, that collective intelligence. And it really is a large group of people. Doesn't have to be within your company. It can be competitors coming together to solve a problem, right? So it's not always about just your company. Sharing knowledge, data, skills to solve a problem. And I just think, as I thought about it, I think about I go to the team, right? And what does this mean for our team? And how does it continue? How does it build or contribute to our culture? And so I thought about that. And so I'm curious. I don't know if you guys know enough about it or read. Steve, I'm assuming you went through that rabbit hole, What do you think might be some of the advantages to that collective intelligence?
Well, my first takeaway, and then Mark, I'll let you jump away, is that the collective or the combine, as it were, could be a family, could be a company, could be a country, could be an army, could be a tribe, anybody that makes, so it's not defined by any particular group. It's a group of people who put their heads together, theoretically and physically, to come up with something that they could not come up with individually. Very much like the Reese's peanut butter. Chocolate and peanut butter together is a combination that only came from the people who represented chocolate and the people who represented peanut butter. So, Marco.
I'm going to give you a great example of this happening in my football career at the University of Cincinnati. When Eddie Gran became the offensive coordinator, he had in his mind the offense he wanted to run from the experiences that he had been to. And in the second game of the year against UCF or USF, we struggled to get a first down, got shut out, and it was an embarrassment on national TV. Dad, you were actually at that game.
I was at that game as well.
And it was an embarrassment on national TV. Like, and we came in,
and it sucked sitting there in the stands as well.
And we came into the office on Sunday, and Eddie, being humble and using his humility, said, what we're doing isn't working. What I wanted to do and what my solution was to us running an offense is obviously not the answer. We need to come together as a staff to decide what's the best thing for us to do offensively. And then it was the collective intelligence. It was, you had 5 offensive coaches in the room that all had experiences in offenses in different staffs and different teams that came together to say, here's what we have. Here's what I have in my arsenal that we've done well with this kind of experience before. Let's put it all together to figure out the offense we want to run. We went on to set break every offensive record in the school's history 2 years in a row. We started off horrible in 2 games. The next 10 games broke every offensive record that year. And then the following year broke those records that we had set the year before. So that to me was the ultimate example of collective intelligence, because it wasn't one person in the room that was coming with the answer saying, this is the end all be all. It was 5 different people bringing their answers and figuring out how our answers could fit together to be the ultimate solution, which went on to be very, very successful.
Yeah. And so I can just listening to the excitement that process brought you, Mark, right, made me think about if I allow my team, right, to bring their knowledge to the table collectively, what does that do for your team? What does it do for the individuals, right? So you're valuing, right? It's showing them as you're building your culture that you value their feedback and their opinions and their knowledge, right? It gives them a chance to contribute. I could hear it in your voice that was important, right? And it also gives them a chance to practice constructive conflict or disagreement.
True.
Correct.
And speaking up and saying, not sure that's the right. How do we authentically have conversations when we don't agree? And
so you used the word that I think is very, very significant. I'm sure you did it intentionally, but not only do you have to allow it, create the sandbox where the other people need to be willing to do that. So people in a group are generally afraid of looking foolish. And so they tend to keep their ideas to themselves because they don't want to be put in a position where, oh, that's a shitty idea, which happens a lot. We said in our group, and I think Jim Barrett said, which is a great think tank, we used the term big think when we got stakeholders together from a company and our company. We were in a room, we jumped in this theoretical pool, and we swam around and came up with lots of different answers. But the willingness to be able to share your view, it's not something that's fostered at every company or every organization. In fact, it's the complete opposite. People say, I don't want to start any trouble. I'm just gonna, I don't like it. I have a better idea, but I'm not gonna do that. That is so stifling for innovation. So that's what my takeaway here is that it goes back to what we've talked about a couple of times, is trust. You've created that environment where collective intelligence is all about trusting the people next to you. We would say there's no bad ideas. There's no stupid questions. Ask, poke, do, because we called it a kernel. That kernel of an idea could ultimately lead us in a place we would have never gone before, but you got to have the confidence to do it.
And look, at the end of the day, right? Remember the old saying, 2 heads are better than 1, right? So, there's greater, it makes a team smart. If I'm in a room with other people that are smarter than me in different ways, right? I'm going to learn, I'm going to grow. So that's one of the benefits, I think, of being a part of something like that. I also think it improves or it ignites creativity, right? Somebody says something and then all of a sudden, right, you just, as Steve says, you start going down those rabbit holes of these great ideas. That wouldn't happen right? If I was trying to figure this out by myself. I think it also can help with productivity and efficiency.
So
the facilitator of this meeting is so important, though,
yeah,
right? Like the person who's running point guard on this is so important, which should be the ultimate authority in the room. Like that, and this is where I feel like the higher up you get, the more facilitating you should do, and the less directing you should do, if that makes any sense. Where like I want to be in the room paying attention to who's not speaking and going, hold on, Jake, how come you haven't said anything yet? Do you have any ideas on this? Have you had anything? Because there's somebody in the room, and it's usually the youngest person in the room, or at least in my experience, it's been the youngest person in the room that has a really good idea, but hasn't figured out how to get their voice in yet, or is afraid to voice it, has some of those fears about looking stupid or whatever, and they need the encouragement from the ultimate authority in the room to go ahead and put themselves out there. And even if it's a horrible idea, you go, all right, well, let's play it out. Let's put it on the board. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about how that might play out, because it's not necessarily about being with people that are smarter than you in the room. It's just about being with people that are willing to share their ideas, good, bad, and ugly. If everybody is sharing, then you're going to get the collective intelligence.
Right. So I'm going to agree and disagree with some of what you said. I agree.
Of course you are.
Mark and I love to do that. I'm going to agree that the facilitator is critical to the conversation, right? And making sure that everyone is included. But as the CEO of an organization, I will tell you, it's not always best that I'm the one facilitating, because sometimes the fear of that person and their authority stops people from contributing. So when
let
there's
me explain what I mean by facilitating a little bit. And to me, by facilitating, I'm a bystander. I, as the authority in the room, I am the one that's ensuring the person that is leading the meeting, which I think is different than facilitating the meeting. The person who is leading it in the way that I think it should be led, and the people that I'm asking to be a part of it are participating. Therefore, I'm the observer in the room. I have an opinion. It's my responsibility to hold my opinion until the very end, or my ideas until the very end, so that number one, I don't influence anybody else in the room. And number two, I ensure that the pieces are working the way I want them to work. So I love what you're saying, right? I don't think I should be the one standing in front of the room necessarily driving point by point. By facilitating, I mean I'm observing what's happening and ensuring that all of the parts are working properly.
So Sherry Cedar, I think, brings up a really good point. Tension, friction is how diamonds are made. This is not a fun walk in the park. Oh, this is great. This is tension. This is people pushing and pulling and pushing and pulling. That's why we had a practice that said the first idea is done.
Yeah.
Throw that out, because there's something better. And people look at me like, what are you, crazy? I go, let's marinate on that idea, because the next idea is the one that we go with. And people go, oh, we just exhausted everybody. No, collectively, we can lift the boulder. We can do whatever. So, I think this whole group mentality, and Sarah, kudos to you. You jumped into our world, and like yesterday's meeting was absolute fire, because you brought it with no intention of us patting you on the back and going, oh, that's great work. It was a challenge, man. Every time something got thrown into the middle, here's what I'm thinking. What are you guys thinking? It was tearing it up. And Mark, being the leader that he is, and I'm just being real, you were like, that's great, but here's where we need to focus. You brought it back, which is, I thought, great facilitation. You didn't shut her down, just saying, that's great, but here's early stage stuff. So collectively, I think we get more than we do individually, which is why it's so important to recruit the right people, the right personalities. It goes back to having the right teammates. We talked about, like, if you don't enjoy that process, like last night, Gino, who's super bright and has very different skill sets than I do. Scott sitting in the middle. All of us are going back and forth. What the outcome was much greater because of the three influences than it ever could have been if I didn't have somebody to bounce that off of. And so I call it a foil. You know, when you have somebody who stirs that process, that's what I took away from this collective. And I don't think people talk about it enough. Candidly, I think, you know,
to me, it's the mark of a great team, right? Like, I speak about that Cincinnati experience, Lori, and you can hear the excitement or the joy in my voice. I spent the rest of my football career searching for that kind of chemistry in a room. I did not know. It was early in my career. It's my first time leaving Florida State. I did not know that that was an anomaly in that profession. I just assumed that that's the way every staff would operate. And then the further away from it I got, the more I realized how really special that was. And that spoke to the individuals that we had on the staff. But most importantly, it spoke to Eddie, because Eddie's ego wasn't bigger than everybody else's in the room. Eddie was always open to influence, was always challenging everybody in the room to come with answers and have better solutions. And if you were quiet and you didn't have anything to say, he was going to ask you about it. He was going to go, well, how come you don't have anything? Because you either didn't come prepared or you're not actively engaged in what's happening now. Because you could not prepare for a meeting and be in the meeting for 10 minutes and have ideas flying around. And now you've got ideas. Right. So either way, it was a really bad sign that you were not engaged in what was happening. And he'd pull you aside after and be like, you know, what's happening here? You know,
and that's why Eddie's culture.
Correct. That's why the culture of that staff was so good.
Was something that you kept searching for.
Dare we say overtime? Overtime. Give me some overtime. Come on.
And we'll go to overtime.
The best voice in sports. I have one last point that I want to drive home. You guys can add on top of it. But I just had this conversation with another leader, somebody who I'm coaching, who said they have a very high performer on the team who won't share shit. He goes, it's my box. What's in my box is locked in my box. I own it. It's proprietary. And the challenge of managing a person like that. So my response, just so everybody knows that I'm real, is that guy is killing the rest of the team.
1,000%.
As good as that one person is, they're killing the rest of the team because they're all stifled and afraid, and you just can't live in an environment where people want to close themselves off. Comments on that?
Yeah, I think, you know, in the world of sports and in business, we tend to, you know, flock towards that high performer and just assume that because they put up the numbers, they're good for the team or they're good for the organization. And if you look through history, the greatest teams, the guys who are the high performers, also have the greatest effect on everybody else on the team. They're not just putting up their numbers every single night. They're also behind every single door, having all of that impact on the rest of the team. So it's not just about the numbers. And the guys who are strictly about the numbers, or girls that are strictly about the numbers, those are always the teams that don't reach potential. They're always the companies, the organizations, the departments, the teams that you go, oh, how come they're not doing what we thought they were going to do? Or how come they're not reaching the potential we thought they had? And it 1,000% comes back to the fact that they are operating in a silo and there's extreme division between them and everybody else.
Lori, final thoughts?
At the end of the day, they're
really? Is she breaking up, or is it just me?
Yeah, we're losing you in the last minute, Lori.
You just lost you.
Leaders.
Hold
on. No.
Oh, sorry. Am I there? Am I there?
There you go. You're back. You're back.
Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Leave us with a nugget.
I said there are high performers. There are high performers who can.
What the hell's going on out here?
Lori, you're going to have to save it for another day.
Love you. Thank you for coming back a second day.
Here's
Nope. You got it. It's just so good, man.
Fantastic end to the Nudelberg Daily Huddle. Do not forget, every Wednesday from here on out is now Bring a Friend to the Huddle Day. We had great success with it last week. We want to keep that going. So while it's not National Bring a Friend to the Huddle Day, because we're going to do it every Wednesday will be Bring a Friend to the Huddle Day. So bring somebody, invite somebody, bring them along with you for the journey. Thank you guys for being a part of the Huddle. Great Wednesday. Let's get down to business. We'll see you tomorrow.
Please don't worry about me. I'm about to let my heart speak. My friends keep telling me to leave this. So let's get down to business.